The conventional wisdom throughout this year has been, Todd, there are no quarterbacks. There are no quarterbacks in this draft. Well, how many of them do you have going in round one?
5, exactly as you mentioned. And it kind of surprised me, but I didn't have a quarterback in the top 10. That wasn't the surprise. It was, typically it's so front-loaded with teams that need quarterbacks drafting in the top 10, and certainly there are. The Lions need a quarterback. They're picking at 1. The Texans at number 2, depending on what happens with Deshaun Watson. Even as you look down, the Panthers at number 6, maybe the Falcons at number 8. But I don't think anyone in this class belongs in the top 10. So usually you get past the top 10 and there's only 2 or 3 teams that need quarterbacks. That's not the case this year. I have Kenny Pickett from Pittsburgh, who reminds me a lot of Mac Jones in terms of just how advanced he is processing defenses and how quickly he can go through reads. He's not a mobile quarterback, but he's really good maneuvering inside the pocket and then the accuracy. So I think he's at pretty close to NFL ready right now. I had him going the Steelers at 12 with Roethlisberger obviously getting set to retire, as we believe, at the end of the season. Then right after that, Washington, Matt Corral from Ole Miss was the pick. They obviously need a long-term answer at quarterback. Corral had a great couple of seasons in Lane Kiffin's offense. He's not very big. You worry about the durability. Can he hold up in the NFL? But he's tough. He's a mobile quarterback. He extends plays. He's a threat to run. He's got a quick release, and he's mostly accurate throwing the football down the field. Then the Broncos at number 17, they've got to upgrade that position. Malik Willis, I gave them the Liberty quarterback going at that spot. In a conference, we talked about it on Get Up earlier, in a conference where you have Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert, you've got to have a playmaker at the quarterback position to compete. And Willis is that. He's got great mobility. He can throw on the run and throw some unbelievable throws 30, 40 yards down the field when off platform. But he's still a little mechanical as a passer and needs to develop. Then the Saints at 19 could move on from their quarterback situation. I gave him Desmond Ritter from Cincinnati, who's just a winner. He's got a big arm. He's got some mobility. His accuracy is a little up and down, though, and that's why he lasts in 19. And then finally, the Lions, after not picking quarterback at 1, get an opportunity with the pick at 25 that they got in a trade with the Rams to draft Sam Howell, the quarterback from North Carolina. And just for full transparency, Ritter and Howell have second-round grades, in my opinion, but we always know these quarterbacks wind up getting pushed up, and it wouldn't shock me if we saw 4 or 5. I think a minimum of 3 with Pickett, Corral, and Willis, but maybe 4 or 5 quarterbacks go in round 1.
This is McShay with us on the Goodyear Hotline, making the plays that move you forward. Goodyear, more driven. Again, a minimum of 3 and as many as 5 going in round 1. And as we touched on in Get Up, but I want this audience to hear it, if any of these guys were in last year's draft class, would any of them have crashed the top 5?
No. And I would have started at 6. Trevor Lawrence obviously goes number 1. Zach Wilson goes to the Jets. Justin Fields, Trey Lance, Mac Jones. If you compare all of my grades last year to the grades on the quarterbacks this year, I would have started with Kenny Pickett, I should say, as the first quarterback from this year's class to go, and that would be the 6th quarterback off the board. So you're talking about Pickett, Corral, Willis, Ritter, Howell, all of those quarterbacks that I just mentioned earlier. They would be after Lawrence, Wilson, Fields, Lance, and Jones.
Okay, fair enough. So that just gives everyone some perspective on where we are. And again,
well, and that's why, not to cut you off, Greeny, but that's why it's so intriguing to me what happens with some of these veterans. That's part of the big equation as well. Once the season ends, the question then becomes, where does Aaron Rodgers go? Is he in Green Bay or is he going somewhere else? How about Deshaun Watson? What's his future with all the legal issues that he's dealing with? Is he leaving Houston? Can he play next year? Russell Wilson, Seattle, is he going to move on from Seattle? And you have teams like the Lions picking at 1 in 25. The Panthers picking at 6, and then even the Giants picking at 5 and 7. Do they want to move on from Daniel Jones, who's coming up on potentially the last year of his deal? And then the Eagles. Jalen Hurts made a big improvement this past year, but do you believe that he can be the guy to lead you to a Super Bowl? I personally do not. And so I've got 3 picks if I'm the Eagles in the first round. 3. Talking about 10, as it stands right now, 10, 14, and 20. So 3 picks in that 10 to 20 range. That gives them a lot of ammunition if they want to go strike a deal for the three veterans that I just talked about. So the quarterbacks in the NFL that are elite level talents very much play a factor into how things are going to work and how many teams need quarterbacks when we actually get to the draft in April.
I totally agree. And by the way, if you're interested in all of this stuff, as I am, then you need to be listening to the First Draft podcast. You guys are back, finally. It was months and months between podcasts, but they have a new episode up.
I'm glad you missed us, Greeny.
I love it. It's First Draft. It is McShay and Mel and Field Yates, and it's every week. Is it every week starting now? You guys are going to be on every week?
We did one just last week,
right.
And then we start the first week in January, and we do one every week leading up to and through the draft.
Well, that got me all the way. I mean, I host the draft now, so that got me all the way through it. I mean, if you like this stuff, then they live in this stuff every minute of every day. Let me go to some of the quarterback situations you just mentioned. And the first of them is with the Giants. So the Giants have an interesting decision to make with Daniel Jones. Do they pick up an option on him? Do they not? Do they move on from him completely? How does that thing work? If Daniel Jones was in this group,
I would have.
Yeah.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, no, but if Daniel Jones was in this group, McShay, how would that? You were just saying, because Jones was a prospect that most people didn't expect to go as high as he went either. So, how does he factor in with something like the Kenny Pickett's of the world?
Yeah, I had a fringe first-round grade on Daniel Jones,
right.
And when it got to the draft, I wasn't shocked because I knew the Giants were very likely to take him. But when I first heard the news, I was stunned. I just didn't think Daniel Jones belonged anywhere near that. I think it was a 6th overall pick that they took him. But, forget the past and forget what the draft grade was. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. And, he's talented, and he's mobile. He can run. He's got a solid arm. He can be accurate at times. But turning the football over, not winning football games, and that's not all on his shoulders, but some of it is, and the inability to stay healthy, that scares me.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.